I'm Joe.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm here with Carol from the Black Health Forum. Hi, Carol.
Hiya.
Can you start by just giving us a little bit of history about the Black Health Forum, how it got started?
Yeah, of course. We started the Black Health Forum in 2002. Gosh, that seems such a long way away. The reason for it starting, it didn't actually start out as the Black Health Forum. At the time, there were a number of workers within Bradford around youth and community health, social care. And we were going to many meetings, as they do, around setting up services, providing health provision. And we were sort of a core group that was always there. There wasn't many other Black people representing the community. So there was just a core group of us. So we started to get together mainly as a support group for each other about, you know, how we could work together, how we could provide services. Because at the time I was working for the NHS as a community health development worker. So in our core little group, there was someone from the council, there was someone from youth service, there was someone from a mental health charity. So that's how we got together as a support group. But then we started to notice that when meetings were coming around and decision making was happening, there was nobody of an African or Caribbean background within those arenas that were putting the health needs forward. But within our roles, we were seeing that there was a growing more and more inequalities in health that was happening, and there was no services targeted. So we started to meet and we started to have events, and that's how it sort of evolved, really. We became a forum and we thought we wanted to be a voice within the health and wellbeing arena for the community. So that's how we set up, started running, did lots and lots of stuff. We've taken part in working with the hospitals around. They were looking at changing their menus to make sure they included food for Caribbean people. We've done lots of health open days where we've got health professionals to come out into the community to do events. You know, numerous stuff. We've just, whatever's needed doing. And we worked in partnership with organisations across the district as well. And that's what we've continued to do all along. We've not had hardly any funding. We've sort of just relied on our own skills and volunteers and just working in partnership to deliver what we can where we can. But yeah, we're still here all these years later, and the demand seems to be growing. It's not going away. It did take a dip slightly because within Bradford, we had all the funding cuts over the last few years, where the government took quite a lot of money. The central government took quite a lot of money out of local authorities, and they had to make massive cuts. So the voluntary and community sector took such a big hit, and a lot of resources that we did have in Bradford seem to have disappeared. So we're still there, still fighting on. And we thought at one point, are we still relevant? But then COVID's come and it's like we are more relevant, because, you know, we're just getting contacted from more and more organisations wanting us to help them to reach the communities, to spread the message about the vaccine, how to stay well. And again, when all the lockdowns came, we were needed to reach people that couldn't get out, the isolated and the vulnerable. So yes, that's a little bit about us. We're volunteer-led. We've had various members over the years come and go, but we're still here.
How has COVID changed the day-to-day of what you do then?
It's changed it so much, because as I was just saying to you before, a lot of what we did was on the ground, face-to-face work. We used to run a wellbeing cafe for our elders twice a month, where we met at a local church. And we provided activities, we provided access to services, exercise, just social interactions around their mental health and wellbeing. We've not been able to do that. So just before the lockdown, we had a health event where we were trying to raise people's awareness around dementia, because we're working closely with Bradford College and with Leeds Beckett around dementia, well-being, diabetes and all that stuff. So a lot of what we did was on the ground, face-to-face, meeting people, putting on events, So COVID's changed it a lot because everything now is online. So a lot of what we do, we've had to adapt and we've had to change. And now we've set up a digital project for our elders, and those that are able, we've been providing training with our volunteers to get them onto their iPads, get them onto their smartphones, asking their relatives, their grandchildren, whoever, to help them to get online. So a lot of what we do now is online, and so that's how it's changed. We still do our monthly food drops to our elders, so we provide nutritional, cultural foods. Once a month we do that. And this week, because it's Valentine's, we wanted to do something different. So tomorrow we're providing them with a hot meal and a nice flower. And then I think we're going to have a bingo session, but it's going to be online. So yeah, everything's online really. And we keep, and we phone a lot of our elders that are not able to get onto the digital. We keep in contact with them by telephoning them, asking them how they're doing, and just give them that social interaction, because they're quite lonely and they're not having much contact because they can't even see their families as well. So
have you managed to reach nearly all of them then through one way or another?
Yeah, we speak to over 50 elders every week, and we deliver over 40 odd food parcels as well, and we seem to be getting more and more referrals the more people know. We also work closely, we don't do this in isolation, we work with the Windrush Generation, who are another group operating in Bradford, and they deliver food parcels as well. So we work closely with them. They deliver around 115 food parcels every week. So they have a wider reach than we do because we're very limited in the volunteers that we have. And we work closely with the Dominican Association, and they also reach their members as well. So between the three organisations, we're trying to cover a lot of the district as much as we can, finding out where people are and offering a service that we can. So yeah, we try and work in partnership as much as we can, because we realise that's the only way forward. In order for us to spread our resources across the district, we have to work together. And so if we identify somebody that we're not able to work with, then we ask them to do it, and vice versa. And as I was saying, like the Windrush Generation, they through their food drops, identified a vulnerable person in the community who didn't even have chair to sit on. He didn't have anything in his flat at all. So we've all rallied around to try and find some stuff and get him some help and benefits.
Were you working closely with these two groups before COVID anyway?
The Windrush Generation is a fairly new, because they're a separate, because they were set up to address the issues with the Windrush, you know, all the scandal and everything that was going on. So that was their main focus, and we did work with them around that. But as COVID sort of took hold, they formed another organisation with it, which was around their food deliveries as well. So yes, we've all worked quite closely. The Dominican Association, we worked closely with them before COVID, because I think we realised, as I've mentioned before, when funding was taken away, we were all working in silos, trying to deliver a service and tripping over each other, trying to reach the elders. So we decided that we would work together. It was much better, and it's better to get funding in if you're all working together, because nobody wants to fund three separate little organisations in the same town. It's better if we all pool our resources together and be able to do that as a partner.
With the Windrush Generation, have you found, because I know the Windrush scandal's still going on, a lot of people still on funds for that. Have you found COVID affected that? I know COVID slowed down a lot of processes. Has it slowed down people getting
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think they're still quite active in that, and they've made connections. Nigel Guy is the person who sort of runs that, and I know he's made regional and international connections with other towns and cities, and they've had conferences and webinars with regards to the issues now, because I think it's around making sure that those people who were affected by the scandal, you know, they've not got the compensation that they deserve for all the things that they've been through. And to my knowledge, you know, just before Christmas, we were hearing that, you know, some people were being put on planes again
Still,
and
yeah.
being deported still. And I think at the last hour, they were able to get that stopped. So I think it's still all happening, you know, it's still all going on, and it's still very active.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
And with the digital project, I know actually to even get access to health services, which is very important for older people during this pandemic, a lot of that requires some stuff online. Have you found people been having issues with that?
Some have. There was a concern. I think you were at the meeting, Daniel. Well, I think Charles raised it around somebody that he was working with. They were telling him to put an email address in and to book an appointment online. So yeah, we have had a couple of those. But fortunately, some of our elders have got grandchildren that have been able to help them, or, you know, if not, we've been able to send a volunteer up to be able to help them to do that. But we are working closely with the NHS around that, you know, making sure that anybody that does not have to do these things, because we realise that a lot of elders can't do it. So they are getting phone calls from their own GPs and things. So
that's good, yeah. And how you find the elders are getting the information, because it keeps getting updated as this crisis
they're
is
getting
ongoing.
it, but they're very confused indeed. And we've got a number of people now, not so much the elders, because a lot of them are taking their vaccine and they're quite happy to do so. But I mean, you will have seen in the media how, you know, there's quite a number of people from a BAME background who are reluctant to take the vaccine. So a lot of the work that we've been approached to do is to try and get some of the correct information out there and try and combat some of the myths that are out there, you know, on social media and everywhere, which are stopping people within their like 30s, 40s and 50s not wanting to take the vaccine. So that's the sort of way that we're going at the moment, to try and educate people. We're not there, and we're not in the business of telling people that you must take your vaccine, not at all. We want to be able to provide them with the information. We want to be able to answer their questions, which are very relevant questions and valid questions. And again, not to, make people feel as if they're in the wrong because they've got doubts and they've got questions. You know, we're there to provide those answers as much as we can and as far as we can, so that if they do make a choice, they're making an informed choice, and an educated, informed choice, not one that they've got from some dodgy source on social media.
Does it seem to be helping then?
Yeah. We're not sure at the moment. As I say, we had that meeting, the first meeting that Daniel did come to. I think we're planning another one on the 25th of February, which I'll send you an invite to. And we're going to have a lady who contacted me. She's a lead she's a lead person for the National Research Institute, and she's had a lot to do with the COVID vaccine and the trials. So she's going to come along and be able to answer some of those questions. And again, somebody from the NHS, Victoria Simmons, is going to come along, and she's hoping to bring somebody, a clinician, so that the people that are there are able to ask those questions that they want and get the answers. So we're hoping that it's going to have an impact. And there's also a project, the Racial Equality Network have got funding to recruit community champions who will then go through the training and have the necessary information to then go out and to speak to the people in the community, do that networking, give them the information they need. So this is all ongoing now, because they realise that the work needs to be done in order to get people to understand if they want to take the vaccine and if they don't want to do it. But
definitely, it's an important issue, but I think there is a problem at the minute that there's just not enough information. Like, the studies are still ongoing, and each new study keeps on bringing out slightly different results.
Well, I think this is it. Yeah, sorry. I think this is what we're fighting against. You know, people are having difficulty finding the information And when you do find it, is it relevant? Is it reliable? Which source have you got it from? So I think we're going to try and make sure that we are able to give people as much relevant, good information as we can. And yeah, it does keep changing, but with the information that we've got, making sure that it is right for the needs. Yeah,
that's the best thing we can do at the minute, I think. Yeah,
I think that's all we can do at the moment. As I say, it keeps changing, and and the people have got a lot of concerns about this vaccine was developed so quickly, but if you look into it, it's not been developed from scratch. It's just it's just been derived from the flu vaccine because of COVID had been around a long time and we didn't really know about it. So it's not like they've had to do it from the beginning. So people need to know it's not, they've not started from scratch and developed a whole new vaccine within 12 months. No, I think so. That's a lot of concerns. And I think people also want to know who they've done the trials on. Have they tested people from African Caribbean backgrounds with specific illnesses like diabetes? I know somebody who has sickle cell, and they're very concerned around, is the vaccine going to have an effect on their condition? We've got things within our community such as lupus, so people have got a wide range of worries about, is the vaccine going to affect? And, they're saying no, but people, they need to have the evidence to make sure it doesn't.
They're certainly valid questions, yeah.
Also, I think the government probably could have done a better job of being honest about everything up until now, because the fact that all the rules have kept changing, the government guidelines have changed. They say they follow the science, and obviously we're up to 125,000 deaths today. So yeah. Clearly the government's making a mess of this. I think people are now distrusting anything the government gives you, and obviously they're telling you to take the vaccine. I can see why people would be a bit worried.
Well, this is it. Yeah, they're really worried. And as you say, the government has made such a mess of controlling it. I mean, if you look now, they're only just closing off our borders and saying that people have to go in these hotels that they've got to foot the bill themselves. It's going to cost them £1,500. They've got to have 3 vaccinated. They've got to have 3 clear tests, which they have to pay for themselves, which is going to cost over £500. It's just a nightmare. And I think, yeah, people do mistrust what they're saying. But when I've spoken to people from a clinical side, we have to let people know that the government have made a mess of controlling it, but the clinicians are the ones that have developed the vaccine and they've worked on it. It's nothing to do with the government have put up the resources and the funding to get it off the ground, but it's really the scientists that have developed that. And but yeah, it's understanding the relationship between that, and people are mistrustful of the government because the track record's not been very good.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think in a situation like that where the government's wasted its credibility, community people such as yourself become even more important than they already are. So what you're doing is very important. With the food deliveries, are you finding that that's a good social interaction for people as well? Even though you can't go in, just seeing somebody, knowing somebody's still there, they still care about you, they're still thinking about you, they're still trying to look after you. Do you think that lifts people's spirits a bit in a difficult time like this?
Oh, definitely. It has, because, during the summer, I had an opportunity to be able to help out to do the food deliveries. And knocking on the elders' doors, their faces light up when you stood there on the doorstep. It's not so much that they're even bothered about the food. They forget, and they're like, oh, come in, sit down, have a cup of tea. And we're like, sorry, we can't, yeah, so we stood on the doorstep just chatting away to them, finding out how they are. And they're like, oh, we're okay. But, they miss their friends, they miss their social interaction, and they miss their independence. Those that can get out, they love pottering in town and seeing people. So I think, yeah, they love it when we call to see them. So they're able to have a chat and a catch up. And again, it's similar. When we got the digital project off the ground and we had the elders on, they were like, "Oh God, it's really good to see you. We've not seen you in 12 months." So, you know, we were just waving to each other on the screen. So any form of interaction with them is so good and so beneficial, and they look forward to it. Even a phone call is fantastic, because for some elders that are on their own, that phone call is the only sort of connection they've had with somebody for that whole day or whole week. They've probably not spoken to anybody.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
So
and you said you've managed to get quite a lot of them then connected online. How have you managed to do that? You had to provide them with?
Yeah, so we got funding, fortunately. So we've worked alongside the Dominica Association, who also got their funding from the big lottery, and we've worked in partnership with them. So we've purchased iPads that has Wi-Fi in. So we've had to purchase the dongles as well, because a lot of people don't have internet. So we've got them iPads with the dongles, and that's what we've done. We've produced information leaflets, which is step by step of how to switch it on, what you need to do. Some of the iPads have got WhatsApp in, so they're able to ring their families on them as well. And our volunteers have gone round and sort of sat with the elders as much as they could, being very safe, and helped them to go on, and helped family members to also get them on as well. So we've asked if they could have a family member with them, and so we've talked them through how to go on. We've been on the other end of the phone and we're like, press this, press that, try this, try that, until they actually get on. But it's been so great. And Gary from the Dominican Association, he says, "I'm purchasing stands for my lot," he says, "because I'm sick of looking at top of people's heads." He says, "I've seen up their nostrils, I've seen ceilings, because they don't know how to hold it, Yeah. So he says, "I'm getting stands for them because I'm sick of seeing everything apart from their face." So yeah, it's been great fun. But yeah, and they've fed back and said, one lady said, "Oh, during the first lockdown," she said, "I learned how to text on my smartphone," which they would never have done. So those elders that some of them wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that and didn't realise that they had those skills. So in a way, lockdown's been terrible, but it's had a positive side as well, because it's opened up new opportunities for them to be able to learn new skills. And they've liked that and get in touch with technology. But it's still an issue, because we've got a lot of digital inequality as well that's around there.
Definitely. But now you have gone to the effort of actually getting them online. Have you got any online events planned for them?
Yeah, as I say, they did their first session of exercise on Wednesday. We had a regular exercise tutor who used to come to the group and physically do it. She's now set herself up to be able to do the sessions digitally. So we got the equipment, she got them like bands and exercise balls and things, which we delivered. And so they did their first session on Wednesday and they absolutely loved it, and they can't wait for the next one. On a Friday evening, we do bingo from 6 till 7 o'clock, and that's gone down really well. We get about 10 to 14 elders turn up on that each week. And so we've got bingo. Oh, we've done quizzes as well. So Quiz Wednesdays, where we've done an online quiz, and they really enjoy that. So yeah, just whatever they say they want to do, we try and do it if we can online. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think really important. Loneliness is bad in the country in general, I think, but even worse during lockdowns like this. It
is, and they love being able to see their friends because they've not seen them for a long time. So, as I say, we did a wellbeing cafe, and there was also an elders group that took place at Mary Seacole Court up at Park Lane. They used to meet regularly 3 days a week. So a lot of those elders we've got online as well. So they're seeing people that they've not seen for 12 months, a year. And also because we're helping them to be to get online and to be digitally active, some of them are able to log into the church services that they've not been able to go to for so long. So that's providing them with an extra activity that they can do. They can log on because a lot of the church services are online now. So they can actually do that as well. So they can see their friends that went to church and they're able to get their religious fix as they need it. So that's also been a good thing as well for them.
Are you also, I guess, because we're getting to a point where we don't know how long this is going to last, I guess you're sort of planning for this could be the medium long term could be COVID. So you're thinking about how to, given that COVID's going to be there and we can't interact in real life, you're thinking of more ways to move all things.
Yeah, every day we're trying to think of more ways to be able to interact, because like you said, I think it took us all by surprise and we've all had to adapt and change quickly, and which we've done. So we've reacted to the situation, but now, as you said, we really need to look at our long-term vision as to say, well, COVID might be here for a lot longer than March. You know, what are our next steps? And that's what we're looking at. We're planning, we're trying to see, well, what do we do after this? And I think the digital thing may be the way forward, although we don't want it to be that, because people do need their social interactions. So it might be about how, if we can meet again, how we can do that safely, looking at putting things in place. You know, we might not be able to have the 30, 40 elders that we had at 1 month in a hall. We may have to chop the numbers down and run more sessions with less people. So yeah, it is about looking at those long-term plans and what we're going to do in the future. More things may have to be done outside, you know, weather permitting. So we look at more outside activities, you know, given the weather. So, you know, going, you know, taking them to the park and doing activities outside, or whatever that may be. So yeah.
I just want to go back to something you said earlier about the time back when all the funding was starting to be cut from local services, and you said you had a bit of a dip in people joining the forum, and then you managed to climb back up. How did you manage to, you know, when the funding disappeared, how did you manage to sort of rally round and make sure that this didn't fall apart?
The funding didn't really affect the Black Health Forum so much because we didn't really get council funding. The way it affected us was that organisations around us that we used to work with were sort of disappearing. Key people within the council, you know, had lost their jobs. They were made redundant. They were made to take early retirement. So it was like the resources around us was disappearing. Organisations that we used to work with were disappearing around us, and we had to sit down and really think, are we going to survive? Because at one point we didn't know what we were doing or what our direction was after all this happened. So we had to sit down and say to ourselves, well, you know, are we still relevant? Are we still needed? Do people need what the Black Health Forum's offering? And the committee members around the table sort of said, yes, we are, because, you know, who's going to do this work if we disappear? Who's going to be the support network for other groups, for the elders? Where will they come to? Where will organisations go if they need? Because, you know, we hear this term banded around, hard to reach communities that you can't get into. And so you need a focal point where the statutory services, the health services, have somewhere to go if they need to reach our communities. So we decided that we'd just keep going and see what happens, really. Everybody was committed to keep going. They didn't want to stop. So we just kept meeting and kept going, and then COVID hit. And so, yeah, we realised that it's a good job that we still stayed here and we still kept going. And so, yeah, we'll just...
Did you see in the previous 10 years a change in what you were doing and what needs were changing as well?
Yeah, they've changed so much. The landscape of Bradford has changed a lot. And as I say, we've lost a lot of resources that's out there. We've lost a lot of people. For instance, one thing that we're working on now is trying to get some money together so that we can get a community development worker on the ground. I mean, I can use myself as an example. I worked for the NHS for 20 odd years as a community health development. So all my work was on the ground with communities in, wherever they were, in estates, everywhere. I've worked all the way across Bradford. And I had colleagues, I had people who worked around mental health, I had youth workers, we had resources, we had a lot of activity going for the community to get involved with events, things. And as I say, when those funding cuts came in, all that disappeared slowly over time. People went, money went, buildings went. So, you just look at the landscape of Bradford now, and for particular communities, and I'll say the Black and African Caribbean communities, I mean, there's a lot of refugee communities that are coming up now that are trying to establish themselves, but particularly for the African Caribbean community, who have been a long-standing community within Bradford, all our resources have disappeared. We have nothing. We don't have any community centres. We've got the Dominican Association, but that was a social club. And when you look at the building, it's not fit for purpose, but we manage. We had Checkpoint, that's shut down because, again, the building's not fit for purpose. A lot of the elders that were running that are all ill or dying, and they can't use the building because it's inaccessible. So we just have nothing really. And there's no workers on the ground because everybody's gone. And just, so it's like, how do you reach out? How do you do the on the ground outreach work? I know you can't do that now within COVID, but a lot of the work that the Black Health Forum do, we also need somebody that's on the ground that can drive that forward. I run it as a volunteer on the side after I've done my day job. So I can't always give it that 100% that it needs, although I try. But again, it's like, we need to build those resources. And that's why the organisations that are out there now, that we're pooling our resources together, we're pulling ourselves together, because we realise that in order to make a difference, we have to work together and we have to make that change, because historically, some people didn't work together. And you had all those divides, which you have in every community. Someone's doing this. But I think, we've come together now because of what's happened, because of COVID and because of the funding changes. And we realise that in order to move forward and to do the best for our community, we have to put whatever happens for us aside and just have the community at the forefront of what we do. And that's what we're aiming for, and that's what we're driving for, to make sure that we can work and try and build an infrastructure for the community that's out there, and to leave something for our younger people coming up behind us.
Yeah, and do you think with more funding, the Black Health Forum and the Dominican Association and the Windrush Generation, with more funding, they could bring back some of those services, make those buildings usable again? Do you think that's all still possible if the funding's there?
Yes, I really do think that's possible. I think if, and it's not that we just want to rely on getting funding from the council. We want to make long-term plans, and we want to make whatever we build and develop sustainable, without getting the funding from the council all the time. But we just probably need a leg up to help us to do that, and establish something that we can develop and leave for the community. But it's just getting that opportunity to do that. And I know the landscape's changed now, but we'll just look. I mean, we might have an opportunity, because I don't know if you know, there's a Bradford 2025 bid that's around at the moment.
We have heard of that,
that they're trying to develop, and we have been contacted and we've been asked about, how can we work alongside that. I mean, I think that looks more at the creativity side, but I mean, health comes in, you can use it as a creative tool as well. So there might be opportunities for, if that all comes off, for us all to work together within that framework.
Absolutely. So food for thought. think COVID's really showed the value of the Black Health Forum. Yeah, and you've got plans for development there. Thanks so much for talking to us, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on and listening to me.
It's been great to learn what you do. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you as well.